So I'm calling the Ides of March meeting of the Underhill Energy Committee to order. Our note taker is Steve. That's the first thing on the order of business. We are doing this meeting entirely online, so we're still following those rules. Meeting guidelines reviewed. Basically, that's what we just did. Adjustments to agenda. Do I hear any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, we will not adjust it any further than this. So then we've got the people who are in attendance. I guess John is not here, right? So
John's here.
Oh, okay. I didn't see him come in. Oh, great. Thank
Came
you.
in late.
Everybody's here. That's great. Yep. No, just a little later than I was. So I see no public participants in the meeting, so our public comment period will be foregone. So review and approve minutes from February 3rd, February 8th. Did anybody get a chance to look at those at all? Nobody?
I looked at them, Michael. I moved to approve the minutes.
Okay. We've got a
second.
motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? That said, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Following Dan Manz's beautiful example from the last week, the minutes are adopted as written. So that said, we want to look into committee operations briefly. Let's see, the meeting minutes. Am I looking at the right? Oh no, this is the draft minutes. I'm not looking at this thing anymore. Here we go. So that said, committee operations. We were going to discuss a bit the issue of getting members for our committee, and Peter had suggested that it might be worthwhile if people could just talk about their ascension, descent, whatever, to the committee, and how you came to be here, and maybe we could figure out a way to further motivate folks to get engaged. I did have one additional thought. I don't know if it makes any sense, but I'll bring that up a little bit later. Anybody want to?
I got in because there was a lottery at the time and I won $500,000, so I figured I'd join.
Ah, and I got in because there was a lottery at the time and I lost, so I had to go. But anybody have any thoughts or
I started because
observations?
Dwight reached out to me specifically, and I think Ruth was going to. So, and actually, that's how I have been. Almost all my community service has been a result of something similar. You know, someone I know saying, "Hey, you should serve on this board," or "Why don't you join this group?" So that's been my experience.
Any other observations? We don't have to limit it to current members, since our emeritus members were once members here and got here somehow.
In my case, I heard of the Energy Committee and I wanted to get involved, so I took the initiative to go find out. But
Interesting.
it sounds
Steve, you always were a member.
I honestly don't remember how I got involved. Whether I looked at somebody or Peter called me, I don't remember.
Yeah, my story is like Steve's. I heard of the Energy Committee. I saw there was a spot. Spoke with my neighbor Dan Steinbauer and then Peter, and here I am.
So my assumption had been, although it does not appear to be being entirely borne out, was that kind of personal contact was a critical factor in this. I certainly don't think that I think that's the strongest link. I know Peter had been telling me that I should be getting on the energy committee for a while, and finally I succumbed to it, and here I am. And although I've obviously been interested in it for a long time, it only works with people who have that fundamental level of interest. But it does appear that people who are interested, when they can hear about it, also may seek it out themselves. It's kind of like there's two tracks that I see here. I feel like the strongest track is personal contact, obviously, in some one form or another.
I think we've advertised enough that there's an opening that anybody who had a desire could have joined by now. So
I would think, although circumstances do change,
True.
the things hit people certain ways. Not everybody reads every Front Porch Forum. Oh, somebody's here. Hello, caller number 2. Who are you?
Michael, it's Peter. I don't know why, but this terrible software kills my audio almost every time, even though I was connected earlier. So I'll have to come and go by being on the phone.
Fair enough.
Are you still talking about why did I join?
We are indeed.
It's more a question of why did you join?
Right.
What did you think you were doing?
Right, exactly.
I joined because I was already involved in the energy issues, being on the board of the energy co-op of Vermont. And Jerry Adams convinced me, knowing I was an engineer, that I ought to come and think about being on the committee. And I came and saw, and they conquered.
Yeah, how do you weenie weenie loosey? I don't know. It's a good expression for the Ides of March, but
right. And so, apropos of this, I guess, as you mentioned the fact, Michael, that I thought it'd be interesting for each member to think through why she decided to come on board. I thought it might help for any of us to think about people who might be similarly motivated and just take a chance, even if it's a long shot, and speak to them.
I think that's a good idea myself.
I don't think that.
Yep.
Yeah, I just was going to say. I mean that instead of relying on some sort of mass marketing scheme where we throw something on Front Porch Forum and say, please consider this. Now, I do remember that I believe that Dwight and at the time Nicole both saw the Front Porch Forum post that I believe I put on. I think they responded to that. I may be wrong, Dwight, but it seems to me that that's what happened. And I think, Robbie, you did too. But I would put more dependence, more faith in word of mouth and direct friend to friend.
Well, I think that reason not to do both.
Right. And I was wondering about along the line of the kind of almost a hybrid approach. SE has just completed a survey of relative to the green burial issue. I hope you all filled that out, by the way. She's gotten a tremendous response for it. And in it, one of the things that we asked about was if people were interested in being involved or doing more, and to give us, a contact if they were. And it struck me that could be a good way to seed this, not necessarily just who do we know and, who are we friends with, but to seed our questioning and make a direct follow-up possible. Does that make any sense? In other words, is it time for another energy survey one of the questions being, are you interested in being involved, and leave contact information.
Well, I kind of feel like unless we have a good reason for doing a survey, I don't think we should do a survey.
Okay.
Just because people get surveyed to death, and I don't hear a compelling reason to have a survey other than membership, and I don't think it's the best way to do membership. I agree with Peter that if we can find people we know, that's the best.
Right.
But advertising in Front Porch Forum, we may find somebody new to town. I'm not sure what other ideas we have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've been trying to do with, it's like showing up at Jericho Farmers Market, and maybe that will produce some results this year. Showed up at town meeting. Got one guy, and that's one thing I should ask about, who said he was quite interested in it. Jim somebody, I got his email address. But he said he was like double booked on Wednesdays. And so our Wednesday meeting day, now whether or not that was actually true, I don't know, but I mean, it's definitely something that I could imagine myself saying if I was trying to find a way to graciously duck out. But at these events, we always have some kind of a sign up, and whenever I'm there anyway, I try to talk to people about put your name down, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Had very limited impact at town meeting, and that'll come up a little bit later. But
And
I think that
when
these
you have
events where
when you have
what's that?
people sign up, do people sign up? Have we got some sign-ups?
Well, like one from the farmers market and one from town meeting.
And have
And
we contacted those people?
well, I mean, the sign up was for I was going to pass the town meeting one off to Dwight, because it's a I think the farmers market thing was not an Underhill person, as I
Uh,
recall, and the town meeting one was someone who is very interested in learning about weatherization
okay.
and that sort of thing. So I was going to pass that off to Dwight with that, but
Yeah.
we're not getting big responses.
No. But
Now, on the other hand, what?
that person that said they couldn't come on Wednesday, maybe it makes sense to go back to them and say, what if it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday? I'm not locked into Wednesday, are we?
That's what I was going to ask. Is that something that we would shift the whole meeting for one person? Now I know, I mean, Tuesday could be a bit of a problem. Monday, at least for me, although I would be willing to, once a month I could probably pull off almost anything. Um, and Monday, that's when the ARPA committee has been meeting, but I'm expecting that to come to an end. So, I mean, I am not married to Wednesday myself. I don't know how people feel about the possibility of changing it to accommodate one person, but he did seem enthusiastic.
I'm pretty open 2 other days. I'm not wed to any one day.
I can't do Tuesdays, Michael, but any other day would work.
Okay. Dwight, how about you?
I would,
I'm fairly
Monday
open.
or Friday would be my option.
What was
Okay.
that?
Graham? We're all talking at once here. Graham, I missed you there, I think.
Monday or Friday would be the alternatives for me,
Okay, I try to
preferably
avoid
Monday.
Fridays myself. Yeah, I would say that Friday we should leave open for potential enjoyable activity. Whether we actually chose to do it or not, it may be another question. But now, Dwight, what was your thing?
I'm Monday through Thursday. I don't have anything other set meetings nights, so
Oh, would people? I'd be glad to contact this guy and say, I talked about it with the committee, and there's some interest in moving the meeting if you would like to join it.
Whoa, I don't know if I'd do that or not, Michael, but what you might do is ask him, contact him and ask him a hypothetical question. Is your interest great enough so that were the meeting night to change, it would make it possible for you? And then not necessarily promise that we're going to do that, but you need to find out if this guy is
For real.
sincere in that being the only reason he couldn't do it.
Yep. I think that's a very reasonable. I will pursue it. I've got his email address. I even put it into my email addresses in the computer. So
Because what if you find somebody else who comes along and says, well, I could do it. I can't do Wednesday, but I could do some other night. You need to line these ducks up so that if you change the meeting night, it accomplishes the most you can.
it sounds good, but I will get in touch and see if
Yeah.
if we were to change it, if he would be interested enough to pursue this.
Yeah. If I may, and Ravi, I hope you don't mind if I push you on this a little bit. I did suggest somebody who lives on Range Road to you, who seemed to be highly qualified. Were you able to check on that, or?
I haven't, Peter. I've been traveling a lot lately and haven't seen him in quite some time. But I do need to follow up on that. And I also know someone who works at Darn Tough who has expressed interest. So there's a couple people that I need to follow up with.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we can follow up on that. I will follow up with this guy and just get a read on what's going on. Robbie can check on that one, and let's see what we find out. And Robbie, when you speak with him, maybe you could mention that there's the possibility that it would not be on Wednesday. The meeting would not be on Wednesday nights, and see if that would work as well.
Sure.
Great. So we are a couple minutes past when we're supposed to pick up the ARPA projects question. I've only allowed 5 minutes for it, but we may want to take a little bit more for it. Is everybody ready to move on this?
Yes.
Okay. Let's move on to the ARPA projects question. We had a meeting on Monday, and we looked at the rankings that people had put together and so on and so forth. I have to say that Energy Committee initiatives did not fare well. Most things are coming up fairly far down the list. I sent a spreadsheet around to everybody. If I'd had a little bit more time, I would have tried to figure out. I spent a lot of time today digging cars out of snowbanks twice and stuff like that, so I didn't get to do quite as much as I had hoped to do on all this. So, but I would have put this spreadsheet up on Google Sheets, but I did send it around as an XLS so that people could see kind of where things were falling, and they're kind of falling is kind of the idea here. Basically, the only Energy Committee initiative that's kind of showing up in we sort of set a cutoff of an average score, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we didn't set the cutoff, but that was the working sort of cutoff. And the average score, and let's see. Oh gosh, this isn't what I thought it was. Let me get a different one. I hope this isn't the one I sent you, because the one I sent was done in order.
Yeah, there's two tabs. There's one that says rank and one that says master.
Right.
And the rank one is in order.
Right. Oh, rating sorted. Let's see what that works. Right. Okay, that's the one. Yeah. So this was done kind of in order, and this is kind of where things are falling in terms of rankings that people gave them. And the rankings less than 2 were the kind of, I won't exactly say a cutoff, but it was kind of where people were a working thing. Now you can see Town Hall Solar was just below that. I will say the lighting upgrade has actually been moved into the overall Town Hall upgrades, sort of folded in with that, so that would get done. But that's kind of the only one of our initiatives that falls in that category. The solar falls close, and I'm wondering if it's worth pursuing some analytical stuff to sort of suggest that we'd really like to see an energy initiative included.
Michael,
And
can I ask
who?
you?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Can you remind me how much is the total that Underhill is meant to spend? Because looks like the
Rough.
cumulative amount here is less than $1 million.
Right. What's left at this point is about 650.
So from that cutoff, so I guess so not all of it would be spent in this go. Will there be another round of these?
No, but part of the thing is that there's been some finagling in terms of money. For example, the let's see, Harvest Crossing is now in for 100, and people are trying to put as much into the sidewalk as they can. There's a real strong sense of trying to accomplish as much as we can on the sidewalk. So basically, the expectation would be that it could very easily be eaten up in this, in those categories.
Really? Okay.
So I think it might be worth trying to push for getting at least one energy initiative involved. And
did you say that one of them was favorable, Michael?
Well, I mean, the only one that made the quote unquote cutoff was, well, it didn't even make the cutoff, but it got folded into the town hall improvements, was the town hall lighting upgrade to LEDs.
Yeah.
Right, the first one below the cutoff, I don't know if you can see it, is the town hall solar, or roughly 50,000. Now the actual cost, what? Yes?
I'm still surprised that you're coming in at that cutoff at 50% of the funds being allocated.
No, that all we have left is 650.
Right. So maybe I'm reading it. It seems like the cumulative amount at that cutoff of 2 is 311.
No, the numbers got finagled a bit, and I'm looking at perhaps a slightly different one, but
Okay.
I'm showing 570.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it must be an Excel issue.
Yeah. Basically, at that point it's 571, like I said, and that does not fully reflect the 100 for Harvest Crossing instead of 75, and whatever people can throw into the sidewalk project. I think that, given that we are one below and there is the case, we could hopefully make a case for including one full energy initiative in this. And somebody might be able to help me pull together some information in support of that. My guess would be that the only thing that makes a lot of sense to do that would be the town hall solar to do that. And again, I do not know that it would be successful, but it seems to me that it would be worth at least some effort to, at least see if we can advance it.
That seems reasonable. Was there any discussion about the merits of any of these?
Well, I mean, there's some discussion about kind of everything. We talked about how everything worked and how everything went together and so on and so forth. We all as you can see, we all went through and ranked various projects. Needless to say, I ranked the energy projects highly. Some other people did not rank all of them highly. You can see who ranked what where pretty much, although I guess Emily's is not reflected in some ways, but in this particular spreadsheet. But um, so I think that, like I said, we discussed a number of the projects. There was a lot of, but there's, kind of more discussion about the transportation ones, the sidewalk one, what would be involved in actually getting something done with that, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I plan to do is to contact regional planning, and it's my understanding that this is the kind of project that at least the planning and engineering for it, they would in fact do for us. And then we could potentially pursue other funds, and in which case we wouldn't need to spend ARPA funds on it. But people are very, very, chomping at the bit to do something about this. There's a huge sentiment in town to make some safety upgrades, to make some improvements along those lines. And so right at the moment, I think we are sticking with the $50,000 placeholder for this. But I plan to do a certain amount of trying to resolve that. But I do think that it would be, if we can, for example, get regional planning to put it on there, then the $50,000 becomes available, which is just about the cost of town hall solar. Now, what that does do is it takes out any actions toward the Underhill sidewalk, the center sidewalk, and pedestrian kind of facilities at all. So I think people would feel a certain symbolism in that, that it need not have, since there are other means of funding this that the solar would not have. But nonetheless, my sense is that it would be very difficult to totally displace the sidewalk.
What do you want from us right now, Michael?
Well, I think should we pursue trying to get an energy committee initiative on there? B, should it be solar? C, who can help me pull together some kind of a rationale for doing so prior to our next meeting, which is going to be in 2 weeks from last Monday.
Michael,
Yes,
my question, is when did you discuss them at all, and what was the general feeling behind what the energy committee put forward?
I think that it was generally well received. I had a lot of, very positive, but it was more in relation to other things that we did not fare as well as we might have.
I'm really disappointed in that. There was a lot of fours on there, and I'm just wondering if it was because they think it's that we're getting funding there's enough funding elsewhere, or I guess.
I would certainly be willing to bring that up. I didn't, like I said, I did not pursue that per se. People, especially since we have, 7 people writing numbers in, I didn't try to quiz everybody on every number. We had 52 projects. About 40 of them actually wound up getting ranked, across 7 people ranking them. That wound up being a big sort of statistical mass of stuff there. But I did not. I think that it would make sense to, if we, as part of that initiative, for me to pursue, ask people why they felt they should be ranked so low. I do feel that pretty much anything other than the solar would be a heavy lift to advance.
I'd suggest that we simplify it and focus on the solar. And then the only question that I would have is, how do we get the numbers? What do we need now? And I don't have time to volunteer, so I don't know if somebody else does.
Hmm.
So I guess
I
that's a motion. I would move that we work on the getting details for solar and bring that back for further discussion.
okay. We have a motion on the table. We can discuss this since we don't require a second. I think that I don't know, Graham, would you be in any position to help with this? I think the big question is what would be the advantage to the town in terms of potential costs associated with that. Jerry, you may also have information about consumption of electricity and that sort of thing in terms of how much we would be able to displace. I know Jennifer has an actual quote in hand for it. So it's a quote for a specific ground mounted array. I forget the output at this point, but I could certainly get that in fairly short order. Well, I was certainly famous last words. I believe I could get that in fairly short order. But then to figure out just what to do with it, and can you tell me what else we need to get?
Um, I guess my first question is, it look or from what we submitted for phase one application, my place of employment provided sort of an initial bid. Do I need to like recuse from anything other than like, how is there implication there? For
My
me other
sense
than
is no,
just
but I'm open to other
trying to
considerations.
advise. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to. I think could connect with Jennifer maybe since she has the uh, bid or and yeah, certainly at least 1, 2 years, some historical usage, which she may very well have already provided to. It looks like we got information common in Green Mountain Solar. Um, so does that seem connecting with to see what she to get more detail on what was provided from
Sure, that
the
sounds great. Jerry, do you
place?
have any insights?
And even third too, I'm happy to reach out to a third, um, Norwich Solar or someone like that and check.
I don't think we need to go for another bid. I think the big question is to put together a quick back of the envelope analysis of what it would do for the town to have it.
Mhm.
I think that right now that's the main thing. We've got a bid. Everybody's happy. I won't say happy, was delighted with it because everything's more expensive than people thought that it was going to be. But um, that doesn't seem to be what's
Mhm.
at issue. I think the thing is to increase people's sense that this is a valuable thing for the town to do. And,
Right.
with something other than setting a good example. What can we save over what period of time kind of question by virtue of doing it because we won't
Mhm.
have any capital costs associated with it. That would be great. Are people in agreement that we should proceed in that way? Graham will contact Jennifer. Graham, before you do that, let me check my files. I think she may have given me some information on that. And
Okay.
I'll see if I have stuff already. Jerry, do you have any information on our current consumption? And I assume that we aren't actually offsetting anything with the Beartown Array, or are we? Does anyone know about that?
Man,
Okay, well, that would be something we ought to find out about. But, I think that the big question is,
Michael,
yes, Peter.
on the Beartown Array, what was your question about? Are we offsetting? What was your question?
Any of our consumption, town hall consumption, in other words, is some town hall consumption already considered to be provided by solar?
Yes.
Okay, so we would obviously need to know what that is.
Yeah, I might be able to dig that number out for you. It's not very much, and I'm just thinking about how that works. The owner of the array, which I can't tell you the name right now.
Green Lantern?
No, it isn't Green Lantern. It's passed on to a partnership.
Okay.
They sell credits for kilowatt hours to the town at a reduced rate. And those credits are then used to pay part of our bill to Green Mountain Power. It's another one of these topsy-turvy approaches.
Right.
But anyway, the percentage reduction in our electric costs at the town hall, that number is around, and I can dig it out for you. I can guess based on my memory of how that works, but I'd rather dig the number out.
That would be great. So
Steve
we know
may
how much
remember.
we're still working.
Yeah.
We'll know how much we're working with. Steve, do you remember, like Peter says you might?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't have, so that's all right. So Graham, you and I will pull something together briefly for this. Doesn't have to be a real heavy duty kind of thing, but just something to, so that I can go in and say, the Energy Committee took a look at this. This is the one thing that seems to make sense. We are interested in getting one of our initiatives as part of the ARPA, and this is the only one that seems to make sense to do that. Can we revisit the numbers based on the following benefits to town? Sound all right?
What I've put for motion, do you see? Is that okay?
Get more info, how project present to ARPA committee for the discussion and review. Yes, discussed and just work on this. PB will search for data. Yeah, that makes fine with me.
Okay, so we need to approve it if we want to.
Okay, we have discussed this motion. Is anybody ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, the motion carries, and we will proceed with this. Okay. Have we covered everything we want to on the ARPA projects? We're a good deal over on this right now, but I think it was important to pursue it. I'm sorry, I didn't know that it was going to be as important as it was when I put together the agenda. So we have an issue discussion on the table: Affordable Heat Act and cold climate heat pumps, all put together. Peter has provided some information on this. I put together a brief little personal notes on it, and Steve sent around a quick and dirty spreadsheet of cold climate heat pump versus oil costs. Does anybody want to begin the discussion?
Which are you talking
Well,
about?
I think that the two are linked. Pick one.
Well, I'd say let's start with Affordable Heat Act and just ask what are we trying to do here? What's our goal? Are we trying to come out in support of it? Are we trying to come out in opposition to it? Are we trying to come up with suggestions for making it better? What's our objective?
I think any of those would be an acceptable outcome, including a fourth, which is just a greater understanding among ourselves from intelligent and interested people.
Well, I'm not sure what will come out of this committee, but I will tell you that I'm planning on notifying my Vermont legislature members, telling them that I think the Affordable Heat Act is just not well thought out.
Peter, could you be more specific? And I assume by that you mean you wish that they would vote it down.
I wish it could go back and I'm fixing my sound here, just a minute.
Yep.
Well, anyway, I wish they would go back with more good information and rethink their approach. My main problem is, well, it's 2-point really, and I don't want to go into a rant, but I just think that I agree with their goals. There's no question there. I don't agree with their approach. And on the larger view of things, I think that, to use a metaphor, I believe in carrots, not sticks. And it seems to me that somebody is going to be punished by this. And I agree, although I do not endorse in any way generally following the advice of the Ethan Allen Institute. I don't see anybody else doing a good fiscal analysis of this bill.
By which
and
you
I
imply
believe
that they did?
I believe that there's one floating out there. I think the name of it is the Cadmus Project or something like that. Is anyone familiar with that? But nobody seems to have been able to get the figures on that. We've gotten Julie Moore's calculations, but at least Ethan Allen sets out what their issues are and what their problem is. They've got a little bit of their usual libertarian propaganda in there, but I think you have to be open to someone who you might consider to be the opposition most of the time. I'm afraid I don't agree with you, Michael, that time's up. I think the alternative to not doing that act is to do something right. It's not as though we're not going to do anything or nothing should be pursued with haste, but it's got to be done right and in a way which is more of a motivation, an incentive for people to get on board, including those who will be affected by it, and less of a, well, here are my credits, your credits, here are we going to keep the credits. The credits haven't been really worked out quite yet, but as I understand, this won't even go into effect until 2026 anyway. I don't know if any of you have heard other statements about this, but yeah, I'd like them to go back and have another look at it, which perhaps is a more direct look. If you ask me what I would propose, well, I'd like to see them focus, for example, on a good incentive legislation to deal with weatherization. And I know that I think Dwight has stated, and I've seen it in other places, that one of the big problems is finding people to do it. Well, it seems to me that putting a little money toward it might help. He would have a better answer to that than I do, but I just don't think their approach using credits earned and credits obligated and that sort of thing is a good way to do it, because I don't think they can look ahead it with an accurate point of view and find out when the benefits would actually occur, and to whom would be suffering an early penalty. So that's about all I'll say at this point. I'm certainly in favor of them doing something, and I mean, if this energy committee were 100% against AHA, then I'd say, why not pass a motion to state that to our representatives or to the legislature as a whole? But I don't believe that that's the case, so I'm not sure what we can do on our own except try to understand it a little better. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Dwight, I know you had some thoughts as well.
Yep. As a low income advocate, it's what I do. I am very much against this Affordable Heat Act. I think it's going to end up hurting low income Vermonters for a number of reasons. There's the majority of a lot of our low income folks live in mobile homes, and current technology is not there to give them a cold climate heat pump that works. It's what is out there available now is not conducive to mobile homes, simply because of the design of the mobile homes and how, like for instance, their water system, how it's created, the duct system keeps that from freezing in the wintertime. So, for a number of reasons like that. But I also think that they have grossly underestimated the cost to put heat pumps in all of these homes. The numbers I've seen is 5,000 to 6,000. Well, 5,000 to 6,000 is for one heat pump with one head at current rates, and we bid these out all the time and pay for them all the time. Most homes are going to take 2 to 3 compressor sets and heat heads. They said that I'm hearing the number. They've addressed the number that it's going to take 125,000 heat pumps installed over the next 5 years to reach the goals of this thing. Who's going to install them? Contractors are so busy right now that it's 30 to 60 days out to get them installed, especially in the wintertime when contractors are doing emergency stuff. They talk about that it's only going to affect the big folks. It's not going to affect the mom and pops. Well, there is no real oil distribution system in the state of Vermont. Most folks go to New Hampshire or Maine on the border, on the ports to get their fuel. So it's going to affect all those mom and pop businesses, and they're going to be out of business. It's a whole litany of things that I don't agree with.
Why are they going to be out of business?
What's that?
Why are they going to be out of business?
Because most mom and pops are not going to suddenly turn around and drop fuel oil and start doing weatherization.
Right.
Weatherization is the bottom end. To be honest with you, I don't do it. I don't climb in attics unless that's the once a month when I visit a crew and make sure they see me in the attic, because they need to see their boss climbing around where they are. It's the ass end of construction, basically. It's not fun. It's old construction. You're in the attic. You're in the basement. So, like, I have done probably 50% of my time since last January, when my crew dropped in half from 12 to 6. I've done 50% of my time trying to hire employees, and I just hired my 8 in a year and 3 months, we'll say. I just hired my 8th employee, and I've been working on it day and night, working with Vermont Adult Learning, Vermont Works for Women, Resource, constant ad on Indeed. We raised the rate to $20.16 an hour, and it does not attract many people. So what else? It's a whole raft of issues that I have with it, and do other low income weatherization providers across the state of Vermont. But the number one thing, I think they grossly underestimated the cost of this thing. And I read through the Ethan Allen report, and I think, and I also, my boss had a discussion with Julie, what's her last name, the Natural Resources Moore. I believe the true cost is somewhere between those two numbers, the 2 million of Julie Moore, or the 2 billion of Julie Moore, Commissioner Moore, and the Ethan Allen Institute was 5 billion, I believe. I believe it's
Right.
closer to the 5 billion than the 2.
Well, I have a couple of observations and a couple of questions. And with respect to, in particular, Dwight's piece, one is I know that at least I don't remember the exact number, but I think the difference in numbers, at least that Myers Normal or whatever his name is was citing, was like, wasn't that the ANR was basing it on 5,000, but it was more like 13 or 14,000 per installation, and that, as opposed to, and they were coming up with 37,000 or something like that. I think roughly three times the amount, pretty close to it. So that, and those were the two major differences. I mean, Ethan Allen did not suggest that they were doing any more profound analysis than ANR had done. They both used the LEAP model. They just used, one used 37,000 and the other used 13,000 or something like that for the cost of an individual installation. And it sounded like, when I read the representations, that was the totality of the difference between the two analyses. I think that, I mean, I see a lot of other things going on too. One of the things that I've noticed is that solar and all of that sort of thing, as it becomes much more, as it gets much greater penetration, has gotten much cheaper, not much more expensive. And the workforce has expanded, although again, not nearly as much as perhaps we need to. But I think that the thing itself will promote both the workforce and additional cost enhancements. Let's see what else is on the table with respect to this. I see it as, I see this as very much an incentive based as opposed to a penalty based kind of piece. The incentive being to get this information and these activities into the hands of people that actually need to do it. And I think that two things. One is we have 2 years to get right some of the details that both Peter and Dwight cite before anything starts to happen. Now, that said, and I may at least alluded to it in my brief personal notes, anything that we do that is going to look at displacing 100 million gallons of fuel oil is going to have a fairly disruptive effect. And it's going to be a while before we sort out exactly how to make that work with the least problems. I think that it makes sense, instead of abandoning the approach, to look at putting together compensations for people who in fact do experience problems associated with it, the lower income people, et cetera, et cetera. The kind of, what are they called, the loop back provisions or whatever in some of these things. It seems to be based on much the same structure as RGGI, which has been stunningly successful. Obviously, there are some differences between RGGI and what's going to happen here because of the way that the distribution system works. But RGGI has been extremely successful across the board. So it seems to me to make sense along those lines. And rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, it seems to me that it would be really great if really smart people like Dwight and Peter instead of saying, oh, no, let's not do this, which is kind of what we did last year, and now what we do this year, and how many more years we're going to do this. And if we'd started doing this kind of question in 2020, that might have been 2000, that might have been a different piece than the idea of doing it in 2023. We have lots of opportunities to both affect it before anything starts to happen, and to adjust it as things do happen. So my own preference would be to support it as the best on the table at the time to address a really important question, get these resources in the hands of real people on a broad scale, and make the adjustments that Dwight very accurately points out need to be dealt with.
I don't think it's a good, I agree with the concept that we need to move towards reducing fossil fuel. I don't believe that the legislature has a good handle on the effects, and I have said this about many other things that they have done. They don't have a good understanding of the cost, and they don't have a good understanding of the ramifications that this will have in segments of population. Low income, it's going to raise the cost of fuel oil. You just have to look at this year to see where that is. It's going to be a very slow process moving people over there. And in the meantime, low incomes are going to suffer that aren't currently weatherized and have these heat pumps in. Middle income Vermonters are going to take a beating, because who's got to pay for it in the long run is middle income Vermonters. They're going to take an absolute beating on this. And I guess it's just, I live this every day, and low income Vermonters they are not involved in this very much. I mean, they just don't have the bandwidth. They're in survival mode. But it's going to end up costing middle and higher income folks more money, because we're going to have to support low incomers with more fuel assistance and all of that sort of thing. That's what I see happening. I know we need to move towards it, but I don't support this bill in any way, shape, or form.
Can I ask
I would love to hear what you do support. That would be great.
We have to, like as Peter said, we have to continue with higher incentives. We have to continue. We continue to, and with the new housing, everybody keeps talking about bending the curve. You just have to drive through Williston to see how we are increasingly making more outside space inside space. We continue to build new housing. How are we supposed to bend the curve with all that new housing going in? We don't have laws that require solar on new construction. We don't have any enforcement other than what's in the towns to the residential energy bill. We need to make sure that when we build a new house, no matter where it's built, it's energy efficient, has solar if possible, and has these built energy efficient so that heat pumps work. We have to build better. We're not doing it at the moment.
But that affects like what, 1% of Vermont housing stock a year or something like that?
But we continue. But that's what I'm saying. We continue to do this. We continue to build bad housing, and we're not bending the curve because we're building bad housing. We're going to build a lot of housing in the next 10 years because of the housing crisis. We have a housing crisis, so it's build more housing rather than look at the effect of Airbnbs and that sort of thing. We have to look at our housing stock and get that under control. We have to weatherization. You got to weatherize before you put a space full climate heat pump in. Can the Northeast Kingdom? What's going to happen in the Northeast Kingdom with their distribution system? Can they afford the extra power that's going to come into that? What's the cost of updating those power lines? That's not in this. It's not in the bill. just penalize people.
Can I ask maybe just a question to, and this is open to anyone. We talked about weatherization, we've talked about the Affordable Heat Act, but I guess since everyone seems to be in agreement that the weatherization part has been difficult and has stalled over the years, um, why? What makes the sort of shift towards the affordable heat, installing new heat pumps? Why would that be any more of a tractable solution? I would imagine there's a lot of overlap with the problems, right? That if Dwight can hire enough people to weatherize homes, is there no issue with the contractors who are going to actually now modify these homes and install heat pumps and that sort of thing? I don't know if that makes any sense.
There's not enough contractors. Like I said, we don't have enough tradespeople to do what we need to do. You're going to put in, this is another thing I didn't even bring up before, but the cost to maintain, plus a lot of, low income houses, their electric boxes cannot withstand. I'm sure Graham with solar projects sees this, but there's an updating of the energy distribution system in these homes. Mobile homes, 90% of the ones we see, unless they're brand new, we have to modify them in order to put in the work for heat pump hot water heaters, and the power requirements for cold climate space heat pumps is even more. So there's that.
Michael, how do you view that? Like, why is installing heat pumps in mandating that a better solution or a more tractable solution than actually throwing a lot of money at weatherization, which we all agree is a good idea?
It's not so much. From my point of view, it's not an either or. It's a both. And the big advantage that I see that that the Affordable Heat Act seems to do is it literally, well, let's call it kind of what it is. It drafts the heating fuel suppliers into working with their own customers to get them taken care of, as opposed to just sort of an amorphous program floating around out there that people have to go looking for, figure out how to access, that sort of thing. It brings it to people through the suppliers who are much, much closer. And in fact, that was one of the bases for putting it together this way, as I understand it, was that this brings it to people directly through the suppliers that everybody knows and everybody has worked with, as opposed to just sort of a program that's floating around out there somewhere. Somebody figures out to call up Dwight and see if he can help out, and figures out where he is, and so on and so forth. Now, Dwight is absolutely correct about people to install these things. I think at least part of the hope is that as an industry gears up, it attracts people to work in it. That is not always the case, but that certainly has happened in the past. I mean, nobody was building V8 engines when everybody was driving buggies, and it wasn't until people started driving them that people started develop the skills and sought jobs to make them. So, but it is absolutely correct that we have a problem right now. The question is, will something like this help solve it?
And I don't think it's a given that heat pumps are going to cost more than oil. I think the little analysis Michael did of the number of days that are less than a certain temperature, I think that's an important thing to think about. I mean, you're not going to get 100% of every bitter cold day, but you're going to get the vast majority of them. And so I think most people are going to save money over the course of a year. So I don't think it's a given that low-income people are going to be harmed. I do think there's a lot of questions that Dwight raises that are really important ones.
Yeah, I would prefer that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So another thing, and you can tell I'm negative on it, and I apologize for that. But another thing is the maintenance of these things. We are seeing anecdotal data from our low-income clients that after a period of 2.5 to 3 years, and again, these are folks that don't have any money. So cleaning their heating systems is not priority. To clean a heating, we see to clean a fossil fuel, and I'm like I said, not in fossil fuel has to go at some point. We have to work towards that. But these cold climate heat pumps are more expensive to maintain. So I called the installer I trust the most, and it's an average. So he's one of the cheapest ones out there, and he charges an average of $175 to maintain a yearly annual maintenance to maintain those heat pumps for one compressor and one heat head. Every additional heating head is a $75 charge. And don't forget that most houses require 2 or 3. The heating system, like the cost to an annual clean and tune for a fossil fuel, whether it's gas is by far the cheapest, fuel oil, whatever, is $150 either every year or every other year.
Well, that's one more thing that needs to go on our list of suggestions to improve the bill.
Exactly.
Well, that's something that is not in there is the upgrade. The annual maintenance costs are nearly 2 or 3 times as much. We're seeing it right now that with low-income Vermonters, there is no program. We're just starting to see it that if you don't, and every day that goes by and these things get dustier and dustier, and they're not maintained, their efficiency is lower. If you're not maintaining them every year, your efficiency is going to be lower. That's not being taken into consideration. We're seeing these things completely break down at about the 3 and 4 year mark if they're not cleaned and tuned. And we're just starting to really get hammered by this. And I'm actually having to put my foot down and say that there is no mechanism for us to do this. There is no money. We can't do this until you come up with a mechanism that allows us to help low-income Vermonters. And these things they're installed as a supplemental, and people are going back to fuel oil and gas, whether it be natural or propane. There's a lot of things that are not being said that are actually happening in Vermont with these cold climate heat pumps right now.
Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of really concrete, good suggestions that you could make, Dwight. I would propose that we open up a document and let's document those ideas and pass them on to the state legislature. I mean, I don't feel like we're going to come to a conclusion that we can either support or reject this proposal, but we can try to make it better. And something should be done, whether that's Affordable Heat Act or not. And
Steve,
I think
I would love to do that, but they won't listen. I've testified in legislation about this stuff. We've told them, we've met with legislators, met with Chris Bray several times, and they're just, this is the only way to do it. This is how we're going to do it, and that they're moving forward. I'm kind of.
I feel like Trevor Squirrel. I feel like Trevor Squirrel would listen to what you had to say. I mean,
I think Edie would too.
Well, I have to disagree with you on that.
Well,
okay.
Edie and I are good friends, and Nancy and I went to the last legislative breakfast, and we tried to get that point across. And I felt like that I was not listened to, even though I had some experience in it. So
you're saying you went to the meeting with Edie and Trevor, or are you saying something else?
No, I went to the constituent meeting with Edie and Trevor a little while ago. There's a couple things in that. There's a couple things in legislature right now that stand to affect this household that I live in quite a bit. So we went and tried to do our thing, and I think my wife's child care issue was heard, and they listened to that, but they're not listening to anything on the affordable heat?
Well, I hate to see us give up because we've got to solve this problem. And certainly Vermont's not going to solve it, and Underhill's not going to solve it. But it feels like we should try to make things better. And if we know that there are problems with the current bill, then we ought to pass that on again. And I can understand your frustration of having done that and having no results, but I just don't feel like we're in a position where we should give up.
Well, I definitely don't. I don't say give up. When we go into a house right now, we do a full weatherization, and if it makes sense, we do beneficial electrification where we can. I mean, we have.
Yeah, Dwight,
Funding
I'm not
is not
saying
an
you
issue.
give. I'm not saying you give up on your clients, but I'm saying, it feels like you have gotten frustrated with the legislature, and how can we move forward, I guess is the question. I don't want
Steve, I
So
think you had a
Steve,
great idea. I'm sorry.
Steve, so what would your goal be? First of all, the goal, I assume, is to get people to listen to some different ideas, some changes with regard to what's proposed in this act. But
yes.
how do you see where do you see the pressure points here for doing something like that?
I think we start with Trevor and Edie. And then I think we feed whatever comments we can come up with, and that we feed those to the committees that are involved. I mean, the more one person hears something, the more they're likely to actually understand it. My old boss
I
used to
think
say,
I think coming from our committee as opposed to just individuals, no matter, would be an additional piece of it. So the Underhill Energy Committee met and discussed this, and we feel that we don't have to say we're for it or against it. We can say that we believe that certain improvements could be made to the approach to heating, and here are the things we think need to be addressed.
and this is the vehicle that's available at the moment. It's not the best vehicle that we'd ever want to have, but it's a vehicle. And it seems like the urgency and importance of this issue is enough that it's worth our time to do just what Michael just said.
Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. I think the Energy Committee, we should formalize a letter and send that off to Trevor and Edie. Kind of go from there, and hopefully they can spread the word.
What you might do with them, especially Trevor, with whom I have worked on a problem for over 6 years, is to say to them, okay, we don't know whether you are in a position to put pressure on the committee who's in charge of this, but tell us where the valid pressure points are in the legislature. Tell us who is willing to listen in your judgment, and tell us whether we're barking up some kind of a tree. I don't remember the metaphor, but is it a waste of time to try to get them to change the Affordable Heat Act? Just a few changes that seem to make sense to us as an energy committee. I think that has a lot more clout than individuals going to them. If it came from our committee, and who knows, you might get other energy. It might be interesting to ask other energy committees whether they have taken the same point of view on this. But I think that's an important point is if you could go to Trevor and Edie and say, this is from the energy committee's look at this whole thing, and we commend the legislature on their target goals, but we think that there are problems with the Affordable Heat Act. We're not asking you to kill it, but we're asking you to open up to the possibility of amending it, either now or by another act of some kind that would pursue it in a more rational approach in our judgment. I worry about the fact that if this goes through, and this is the only game in town that the legislature has put their efforts behind, that getting any momentum on a different type of approach is going to be that harder. I think I may be wrong, but they may say, look, we got the act we need. It's been passed by both houses. We're gonna sit back for a while and see if we can't make this work. I don't think we can afford to. Stunned silence.
No, I was waiting for people to. I hate to be always charging ahead because I know I do that a lot.
Well, you're the chair.
Well, I know, but the chair is supposed to referee more than polemicize. So I think that's basically an excellent approach. I think if Steve will put up a document, we can all put input into it. I can try to formulate something to bring to our next meeting if people will do that in a moderately timely fashion. And we can vote on it and submit it to Trevor and Edie and see if they can point us in the right direction.
Yeah, good.
I don't know. Did we lose Dwight altogether? Did he get fed up and quit the committee? Or I hope not.
Going to get a beer.
Oh, good. I don't blame him.
I'm still here. I've beat my head against the wall for 7 years in the position I currently am in, and I'm done beating my head against the wall. Looking at land in New Hampshire. So I'm very frustrated with the let's make a plan. We don't have a good plan. We'll pass a law and then go forward. So that's my opinion. I'll help the committee with however you want to do it, but it's not going to make a bit of difference to them.
Well, let's see. I'd love to hear, put in your suggestions, Dwight. I think that yours, and bring it forth basically from our energy committee. Who knows? I guess I'm not done beating my head against the wall.
You have a depth of knowledge that none of us have. I mean, you've been working in the trenches, and we need that input.
Well, I'm headed to Aruba on Friday, so if it needs to be done, I won't be able to do it. But
all right, we'll try to represent what you said if we can.
The best we can. Any thoughts that beyond that would be most welcome. But I'm noticing that we are rapidly approaching 6:30, and we haven't covered very much of the agenda yet.
Can I just?
Yes.
Can I suggest that we call it a break soon? But I'd also like to have you make sure that what I wrote for AHA is accurate.
Yeah, I think that's great myself.
Okay by everybody? Okay.
Okay by me.
I would go on to suggest that I would suggest that the rest of this stuff can we wait rather, and that we adjourn.
I would just like to touch on one thing first. And that is, I received an email from Catherine McMains, which Ravi also passed along. Apparently, they are interested in pursuing some EV events coming up, including starting out with a presentation at the Rawson Library. I don't have that. Let's see if I can get that email up in terms of this. What did I do with it? I think it's still in my inbox. Well, Ravi included it. Yeah, so apparently that there would be a talk at DRML in May, and about this stuff, followed up by another event similar to the one we had in June. Jericho is interested in pursuing this. Should I say that we are interested in pursuing it with them?
You say what's the it again?
An EV sequence of events, a pair of events, including a sort of lecture session, if you will. Let's see what it says. I'll read. It got sent to everybody, I think. But anyway, are we interested in participating with Jericho in a two-part EV event? Idea is to have Drive Electric Vermont and GMP talk at the DRML in May to talk about current incentives, home charging, etc. And local owners can also talk about their experiences, especially driving cross country. In June, after school is out, we would have a vehicle event on the grounds of Browns River Middle School, similar to the one we had before. Are we interested in pursuing this?
Yes, I would say yes.
Can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'm moved to support these electric vehicle events with Jericho Energy Task Force.
Did you move that, Robbie?
I did.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table. Any further discussion on that motion? Nope. All in favor, say aye. I'm in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I will pursue that with Catherine. That said, we are a little over our time. We have another meeting scheduled for, I forget what it is, April 12th or something like that. So everyone can go to dinner and we can pick up where we left off should we want to. I'll try to make some sense out of where we left things, if that's good with people. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I think I'd just like to say, Michael, real quick, that if we are going to write
Yes.
a letter to Trevor and E, that needs to probably happen sooner than later, right?
Yes, it would have to come up at our April meeting.
Okay.
I'll get it to you guys before that.
Great. Then I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, the ayes have it. Thank you all very much. I'll turn off our recording now and we'll pick it up in another month and we've got a few things to work on in the meantime. Thanks, everyone.